The NBA, that is banning Toronto Raptors player Jontay Porter for life. A league investigation found he manipulated games for betting purposes. That includes disclosing confidential information to bettors and betting on NBA games. Jamie Strachan has been following this story closely for us. He joins us now. So, Jamie, what are the key points from the NBA's probe?
Well, this was kind of the inevitable, Travis. We knew that this was a very likely scenario for Jontay Porter, that he was going to face a ban for life. A lot more details, though, came out today. You really have two things that were found. First and foremost, he bet thousands of dollars on NBA games, 13 NBA games. He also bet on games involving the Toronto Raptors. Now, he wasn't in the lineup for those games, but they were involved in bets that he made. He bet on them to lose. Obviously, that is something that you just can't do. You can't bet on sports. You can't bet on your own league. You can't bet on your own team. It'll lead to a ban for sure. Beyond that, he also provided information to bettors that would allow them to make bets on his individual performance, basically saying you can bet these what they're called prop bets, like will you score more than 5 points in a game? He would let them know that, you know what, I'm going to go in the game for a few minutes and I'm going to pull myself out with an illness or an injury. That happened on 2 occasions, and it was a $80,000 bet involving a lot of those individual bets on Porter's performance that cued off investigators and got this investigation rolling.
Yeah, Jamie, you have done a lot of reporting on gambling and the growing influence on sport. Is this case of Porter an outlier, or is it just kind of the tip of the iceberg here?
I don't think it's an outlier at all. I mean, we've seen players in other major sports suspended. We've seen it in the NFL. We've seen it in U.S. college. We've seen it in major soccer. We haven't seen it to this extent where a player is banned for betting on their own sport. But look at the relationship, Travis, that these leagues have with gambling. A few years ago, it was in the shadows. It was in the dark. Yep. Now there's partnerships. It's on jerseys. It's in arenas. It's in ads. You can't escape it. So the NBA today, Commissioner Adam Silver said, listen, we got to look at what's going on here. We have to look at the type of bets being offered, the sheer volume of bets in any given night in the NBA. There's thousands of different bets. And it's really not about the million-dollar players, the LeBron James, the Scotty Barnes. Jontay Porter was a fringe player. He was the 10th guy on a 12-man roster, earning the league minimum. These are the kind of players that the league, the NBA, and other leagues need to worry about being susceptible to being influenced, because they could earn a lot more money providing information or doing the kind of things that Porter is alleged to have done than they can actually playing the game. So I think this is the proverbial tip of the iceberg. Yeah. There's a lot more to come on these kind of stories, I think.
We will watch for that indeed. Jamie Strachan in studio with us here tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, my next guest has over a decade of experience investigating match fixing in sports. Declan Hill is an associate professor of investigations at the University of New Haven. He joins us tonight from New Haven, Connecticut. So let's start with this big news that Jamie was talking about of Jontay Porter being banned from the NBA. What went through your mind when you heard that news?
Look, it had to be done. It's absolutely inevitable. And as Jamie was saying before, you've got to take a firm line right away on this kind of issue, because I promise you, there'll be viewers watching our program tonight who in about 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months will be watching something on professional sports and go, hang on a second, was that real, or am I watching something scripted because of sports gambling or whatever? And that's going to be the death of a major league.
So a lifetime ban, what kind of message do you think that sends to other players and gamblers?
Well, look, to the gamblers, it says hide it better, because the one thing that comes right out of Jontay Porter's story was how obvious it was. I mean, this was not difficult to figure out or do it. So it shows a relative lack of sophistication. 2, I would take issue with Jamie, although I like his stories generally, on the idea that superstars are not vulnerable. Actually, the better you are as a player, the more vulnerable you are to gambling addiction. So at some point in the next 1, 2, 5 years, there's going to be a major superstar wrapped up in a similar case like this.
Okay, let's pivot now and focus on how this impacts the rest of Porter's career. Could he appeal the lifetime ban?
Yeah, sure. Look, he can always appeal, but they are going to fight and fight and fight to not get this in. There is not enough clear blue water between professional sports leagues and bookmakers. You've got saturated in ads, as all our viewers know. Every time you turn on a sports event, the league has got official sponsorship now. They have got to separate themselves properly from gambling.
You tweeted, and Jamie said this as well, that this is the proverbial tip of the iceberg of illegal betting inside of North American sports. Tell me more and what you think the bottom of the iceberg is going to look like.
Well, look, Travis, I'm smiling because there's a lot of stuff I can't say. But what I can say is that I'm discovering stuff in North America that reminds me very much of what I saw in Asia, where I saw entire leagues, entire sports just destroyed because of this kind of scandal. And again, I go back to what I was saying a couple of minutes ago. As soon as fans, reasonable, good faith fans, not conspiracy theory fans, but as soon as enough of them start looking at a game and going, hang on, did that star player really make that mistake because he just made a mistake, or was he paid off in some way? It's going to be the death of a league. You've got to keep your credibility. And this kind of issue, the kind of thing that we saw in Major League Baseball, the kind of threats that we're seeing in NCAA, all this kind of stuff is building and building and building, and we have a really significant issue with professional sports and gambling, and people have to start waking up to this issue.
You have been looking into this for over a decade now. What have you noticed in terms of changes over the years?
It's gone like this. I mean, it's literally a vertical curve in terms of gambling addiction among athletes. Males between the ages of 14 and 35 are particularly susceptible to gambling addiction, but in that demographic, 8 to 12 times more likely than the rest of them are athletes. And the better you are as an athlete, the more likely you are to become a gambling addict. Because, Travis, the very qualities that make you good at sports make you a terrible gambler. You never give up. You're used to overturning the odds. All that kind of thing that makes athletes really good at really good at sports, makes them terrible at gambling. So we have a massive issue with gambling addiction and athletes across North America.
All right. Professor, appreciate your time tonight. That was Associate Professor of Investigations at the University of New Haven, Declan Hill, joining us from New Haven, Connecticut tonight.